All right, Sarek. This is one of those episodes where the basic concept of it seems so incredibly simple. Oh, we're going to have you host a diplomatic meeting by escorting one of the greatest diplomats in Federation history to a meeting with a race that does not have a formal treaty with the Federation yet, but has been in talks with the Federation for decades in order to establish a treaty, and that this will be the culmination of those long uh, negotiations. And, well, that sounds rather grandiose when I phrase it that way, doesn't it? And also relatively simple for being so grandiose. Well, we have the great Ambassador Sarek, who is going to be the Federation ambassador in charge, who is old by Vulcan standards. This, yeah, I'm going to get back to that later. That's important, but not in the way you'd think. Why they even put it at the beginning of the episode, I'm not. Well, okay, I know why they put it at the beginning of the episode. It's just weird to have it be the title card of the episode. Anyways, so the treaty negotiations are with a race known as the Legarans. We literally don't see the Legarans or any of their technology at any point in the episode. The fact that they don't fall under the concept of General Order 1 would suggest that they are a warp-capable civilization and thus do in fact have the ability to build ships and travel the universe on their own without assistance from the Federation. Yeah, but we don't see any of that. Actually, I'll just do a quick rundown on the Legarans and the figmentary fragments of information that we actually have. It's very sparse information for something that is such a major part of the episode. This is actually the holding tank for the Legarans during the diplomatic negotiations. These are negotiations that are going to be face-to-face meetings and actually talking in person to finalize the arrangement. And this, however, is a vat full of some viscous liquid that needs to be heated to 150 degrees Celsius for the Legarans to be comfortable in it. Yeah. We don't see what the Legarans are. We don't have any direct descriptions of what Legarans look like. What we do know about them tells us rather emphatically that they are not only non-humanoid, but they're non-organic. We don't have any fancy phrases like with the Shellyak, where the Shellyak works were given some classification R3 or something like that to, give them some identity as a non-humanoid race beyond just being non-humanoid. But anything that lives in 150 degrees Celsius goo is definitely inorganic. That's all we know about them. Seriously. We have a picture of the tank from a different angle. This is actually a rather large tank because it's supposed to be large enough for the entire Legaran diplomatic delegation to sit in the tank while they talk to the Federation negotiation team. Now, here's a picture of their homeworld, which doesn't tell us much of anything. This is literally all we know about their homeworld. Yeah, here's a bigger picture of that tank. Interesting stuff. Sort of. Now, the interesting thing here is that Sarek's mission discussing a treaty with the Legarans has taken 93 years. Also, this somehow also has first contact, and I'm not sure exactly why it's referred to as first contact. I haven't seen this episode for a while, but it's possible that the Federation started sending messages to the Legarans via subspace radio, and that this might actually be the first time a Federation negotiator has actually talked to them in person. Again, non-humanoid race that obviously doesn't like the same environment as humanoids, which is the entire reason why they need to build this weird holding tank to properly contain the Legarans and make them comfortable while on board a ship that is designed for a Class M environment on what is probably not a Class M planet. It literally doesn't tell us anything about the planet. Nothing. It's habitable to Legarans. Other than that, we literally don't know anything about the planet, except that it's green and has clouds. Anyways, so back to Sarek. The diplomatic entourage arrives, and it's interesting that the introduction of the diplomatic delegation here notes that this is going to be one of the last things that Sarek does in his career as a diplomat. And he's going to officially retire afterwards. Why? Yeah. It's not actually stated at the beginning of the episode. Just that Sarek has spent quite a long time working on these Legaran negotiations, and that, much like the treaty with the Shellyak, these negotiations are something that will ensure that the Federation has peaceful relations with them in the future going forward. Now, this all sounds easy, and quite frankly, the actual diplomatic negotiations go exactly as easily as you would expect for something that has been in the works for 93 years, where both sides basically do what they agreed to earlier and just sign the a dotted line and call it good. That's how the actual negotiations actually went down. No. The majority of this episode has to do with the complication that gets introduced in such a simple but glorious mission. Oh yeah, also, we don't actually know what the Federation is getting out of the treaty with the Legarans, how large the Legaran territory is, what vital resources the Legarans have, because it's hyped up as being something more important than an ordinary diplomatic treaty, and it's empty hype. We never see why the Legarans are important, much like we never see who or what the Legarans are. We know that the Legarans are a non-humanoid race, but that's about as far as it goes. Also, unlike Tholians, and much like the Shellyak, the Legarans are capable of breathing the same atmosphere that humanoids would be in, unless they're planning on staying submerged in the goop. Maybe they are actually planning on staying submerged in the goop. If they stay submerged in the goop, then no, actually, they're not breathing the same air that the Federation people are. Again, don't know. Really don't know if they're actually staying submerged in the goop. Anyways, so the episode makes it seem like this is going to be a quick and easy assignment, and then the crew start acting strange. See, the part about this that is interesting and actually gets noted early on is that Sarek's reason for retiring is that he has Bindi syndrome, and that it's making it very difficult for him to continue his career as an ambassador. His aides, Sakath and Keeman actually know about this and have been working to conceal it because of the fact that as long as he's doing his job as an ambassador properly, people don't need to know. It's a very simple principle, you know. It's the fact that Bendy syndrome, when it gets like full Bendy syndrome, does affect the people around the Vulcan because it causes the Vulcan to project their emotions into others. If a Vulcan is feeling frustrated while they have Bendy syndrome, other people around them might start feeling frustrated for no obvious reason. And that is what happens to the crew of the Enterprise. Sarek, it because of the see, part of this also is that Sakath's ability to suppress Sarek's Bendy syndrome is reliant on Sarek not being overly strained. And coming to the negotiations on board the Enterprise caused Sarek to become more strained than Sakath was actually capable of helping with. Side note, this is one of the episodes that signposts the fact that there are very, very few Vulcans on board the Enterprise D, because of the fact that Sakath is literally the only Vulcan we see other than Sarek in this episode. Yeah, the whole thing about how they have or had in some episodes, it's not actually clear how many episodes actually have her on board the ship because she's so rarely mentioned. But Dr. Seelar would seemingly be a person that you would want to have, you know, involved with this. But Dr. Seelar isn't in this episode. However, you know, if now again, this is the basic gist of the whole episode. You know, most of the crew of the Enterprise end up in player character roles. Sarek is, I wouldn't call him a game master insert character. He's a very important quest in PC, but Sarek definitely wouldn't be a game master insert character. Perrin, his second wife, well, she kind of knows about all of the problems he's having and has been working with Sakath and Keeman to keep the problem under control, but we don't really have her as a major driving force in events. She's one of those like ancillary characters who exist to give context and enrich the flavor, but isn't really the key to anything. Now, another thing that's interesting about here is, um, does Sarek actually know that he has been D syndrome? Um, hmm. Also, Sarek's onset of Bendy syndrome, and the only other time I can think of that we've ever actually seen Bendy syndrome is something that is a very early onset thing, and when, or very subtle onset, is that when a Vulcan is affected by this, they um, only gradually notice it. And in the other case that we've seen, uh, the Vulcan didn't even really suffer from it. She just kind of sort of is like, oh, that's a problem. Because, like, part of what made this episode's thing interesting is that Sarek seemingly didn't know. And also is that it's something that's so rare that when Sarek came down with it, he was like the first person who'd been diagnosed with it in almost 200 years. Having Talin get diagnosed with it much later. Well, Talin's was an interesting one because it's a Bindi-like condition, except that it was resolved simply by having Talin stop feeling as emotionally turbulent because she actually, felt better about herself. So it's not entirely clear if Talin's case was actually Bindi syndrome because Talin was able to actually just stop feeling like that and then it went away. I don't know. Anyways, so Sarek doesn't actually know that he's suffering from Bindi syndrome when it comes on board. Sakath has been treating his condition and helping him do his job as an ambassador, which results in Sarek's, normal ability to do things properly. Well, on board the ship, Sarek's condition worsens to the point Sakath can't help anymore, and he needs Picard to help him with that. And again, if the crew of the Enterprise had actually had any Vulcans who were able to help with this, that would have, made sense. But no, they have Dr. Crusher do it instead of Sealar. Realistically, that's probably just the fact that the people writing the thing probably forgot about her, but whatever. And doing this as a game master writing a story, it would take some very subtle descriptions of character interactions and motivations to actually properly convey that people are not acting normally, but also making it seem like it's maybe possibly something that's not a major problem yet. Because that's how things went, is that, it's not until the middle of the episode that you actually realize the problem and then figure out that how to solve the problem and then do the work to actually fix the problem in the end. And, things actually get rather bad on the Enterprise. I mean, like, this is not normal. This is the sort of thing that's just strange and not how anything should work. And the solution, of course, is for Sarek to mind meld with Picard. Picard then feels the intense turmoil of Sarek's emotions and acts as a sort of way to bottle up the turmoil inside Sarek that was being projected outwards. Which, in some ways, is kind of sort of like the thing that Talin was having, except less so. Anyway, though. Yeah. So, aspects of this that could be separated out and used differently. The whole intensely important negotiations with a weird alien race aspect. That is a basic plot idea that gets used in Star Trek so much that the specifics of the aliens and the in reasons, yeah, you can just make up whatever the heck you want, honestly, because like I said about the Legarans earlier, is that we never see them. We don't even know why the Federation considers them such an important race to have negotiations with. We just know that they are important, and that the Federation has spent 93 years working on establishing a formal treaty with the Legarans. And that is as far as that aspect goes. And then, of course, there's the whole Ben-D syndrome thing. Actually using Ben-D syndrome as something that you need to fix as a problem that an NPC has is interesting. It is certainly something that is a valid option for a game master telling a story. I wouldn't necessarily have it as a problem of a diplomat in a mission, but hey, you know what? That's what they did in this one. But all in all, both of those are things that you can work with. You could do that. So also, like the whole diplomatic negotiations that go weirdly wrong thing. Again, that's something that's been done multiple times in Star Trek episodes, and this isn't even the most interesting one, honestly. However, this is one that went very, very hardcore into examining what makes Vulcans different from humans, and how Vulcans are, in fact, not just humans with pointy ears. Vulcans are physically very different than humans in a way that most Vulcans don't even know. And that was what made this episode so memorable. However, doing that in a TTRPG, you're not going to be doing new ground because, well, actually treading new ground in that regard would be establishing things that don't exist in the TV show and kind of violating the canon principle. But hey, if you want to do that, that's up to you. And that's about it, honestly, because the real thing with the whole Ben-D syndrome is it takes very, very subtle handling of the way that the characters interact with each other. And the diplomatic negotiations, of course, unless you're going to actually do the players handling the negotiations, those are probably going to be hand-waved off screen, which is what actually happened in this episode. But hey, actually having the players negotiate, because let's face it, that's what happened in the episode with the Shellyak. Picard did negotiate face-to-face with a Shellyak. And that is what resolved the plot of the episode, was Picard succeeding at convincing the Shellyak to play along with his plan. So, you could do that. That's not what this episode did, but you making a story that is in some way similar could do that if you chose to do so. And with that, I think I will wrap this up. See you guys next time.